Hello and a very warm welcome back to the channel of Motorbike Nonsense. Now, being British, it's very easy to get down the mouth about my country, things like corrupt politicians and just being a bit rubbish at certain sports, but I think there's a lot to celebrate about our little island. We make the best elderflower cordial in the world, we probably make the best cricket bats, and we probably make the best confusing 180 horsepower half-fed, is it a super bike, is it a super naked? Yeah, loads to smile about. Sorry, that was a bit sarcastic, wasn't it? I do love Britain, look how beautiful it is. And the mud. But anyway, this is the new £18,000 Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RR. And I want to find out if this is actually just a super bike, because 180 horsepower might not be 200 horsepower like today's super bikes, but this is pretty racy. I've had this for a week, I've been living with it, I've been riding it, and it is a bit confusing. But anyway, let's just talk about the specs. It's £17,950 if you want the white and grey one. If you want this red one, it's an extra 300 quid. I love the coach lines on this. This bike is beautifully finished, and I said that in my first impressions video last week, but yeah, just all the attention to detail, lovely carbon fibre, yumminess. It basically just reeks of premium, which is what you'd want for 18 grand, isn't it? Considering it's 2.5 grand more than the naked Speed Triple 1200 RS. Now, it's powered by the same engine as that bike. It's an 1160cc inline triple with 180 horsepower at 10,760 RPM. I've definitely remembered that, and I'm not reading it from my phone. And it's got 125 Newton meters of torque at 9,000 RPM. The big news really is the riding position. We need to talk about the riding position because it's the thing that you're going to notice the most, more than the electronic suspension, more than the half fairing. It is the fact that these handlebars are 135mm, that's 13.5 centimeters lower than the flat bars on the Speed Triple RS. They are really low, and yeah, don't think that this is a soft Triumph for middle-aged blokes. It's for middle-aged blokes who can grip on with their thighs. It is a proper 180 horsepower thigh master. It's got the semi-active Öhlins SEC2 with electronic compression and rebound damping, and you can fine-tune how hard and soft it is through the dash. Brembo stylemas as on the regular Speed Triple. But yeah, that new suspension is pretty cushy, and we'll get onto that in the riding bit. However, it is offset by having a more extreme riding position. Oh yeah, the pegs, we should talk about the pegs. They're higher, they're 15mm higher than on the RS. In terms of mass, it weighs 199 kilos wet, which is a kilogram more than the Speed Triple 1200 RS. It's got a 15.5 litre fuel tank, and that's pretty much it. It's got a sexy single-sided swing arm. It is a whip. LED indicators are an option actually on this bike. They're 80 quid for the front, 80 quid for the rear, unless you want scrolling ones, in which case they're £111 each end, so you can spend £222 on your lefty righty turny things. You can get a tank bag and a tail pack for it if you want to go touring. Obviously, this is really designed to be a gentleman's race bike, and I think this will feel more at home on the track than the road, despite it's being marketed as this halfway house between a super naked and a sports bike. I think it definitely falls more in the superbike camp. When did Britain last have a big power superbike? I can't really remember, at least one that wasn't funded by a pension stealing crook. But anyway, I'm going to hop on, go for a ride, and see what we make of it on muddy, cruddy, slightly wet British spring roads. Oh yeah. Alright, let's go for a quick razz on Speed Triple RR, and it is raining. I'm on super courses, so this isn't going to be a flat out track blast, obviously. Now, I didn't talk about the dash, and hopefully you can see that in there. It is, well, it's Triumph's usual one, which is a bit complicated to use to start with, but you soon get used to it. The processing power and the animations take up quite a bit of time switching between menus, but I just want to show you that you can change traction control between sport and road, and the suspension between normal, comfort, and then you've got 3 fixed presets, which if you go back out and back into suspension, I really hope you can see this, you can choose front firmness, rear firmness, and brake support as well. So it's very easy to change. I'm actually just going to soften it off a little bit so I don't whinge too heartily about how firm it is. Right, anyway, let's go, fire it up. hit that so I get the big screen back. I'm just going to leave it in sport mode and off we go. Now it really is a pretty extreme riding position if you're expecting a speed triple with slightly lower bars. This is going to annoy you because it's got much lower bars. It is it's not a torture rack, but it's going to be making your back ache if you're not used to riding a sports bike. But I'm kind of the opinion you can get used to riding any sort of riding position bike. Thank you, kind lady who I just had a chat about the weather with. I think I had a Daytona 675 when I was 24. Admittedly, that was 12 years ago. But I did big tour on that, and I hated it at first. But after, you know, a month of riding it, I was completely used to it, and it just felt like pulling on a pair of slippers, and I found it more comfortable than a street triple because I had wind protection. So take my whinges about the riding position with a pinch of salt, because you can get used to stuff. Not these menus, they're just bloody annoying. No, I want to see the whole full-size Speedo. There we go. I hate that there's a home button on the right hand switch gear. That should be over here with all the other controls trying. The user experience is a little bit rubbish. I don't really like the four-way cursor, little nodule down here that you use to go between all the menus. It's a little bit close to the indicators if you're wearing winter gloves, which I am today. But anyway, I'm going to let the bike warm up and get some twisty roads, and we can talk about what this bike is good at, because it's good at lots of things. Right, just before we get to the 70 limit, talk about motorway speeds on the Speed Triple 1200RR, I want to talk a little bit about character, because this engine is revvy enough that you will want to sit in like second gear at 40 miles an hour. It has got stacks and stacks of mid-range, but you can't chase the revs. I'm in street mode. I've spent most of my time with this bike in sport mode, but even in street mode it does give you a sense of excitement I don't remember having on the 1200 RS. And when I say excitement, what I really mean is the front wheel lifting up a little bit over bumps and crests, and when you're hard on the gas, just enough for the bars to go light and the traction control looks after you. It does make it thrilling, but the throttle cable, you really have to force yourself to open it all the way to go full Barry Bananas on it, because it feels like it's got quite, it hasn't got a long travel throttle, but when you're in second gear there's so much mid-range you're like, I'm not sure I want any more. It is blisteringly fast is basically what I'm trying to say. Now I'm doing 70 miles an hour. I'm a lot happier on this because I've got the wind blast on my chest lifting me up, and that's why I like touring on sports bikes, because when you're bashing out big miles, I'm not getting turbulence because the screen's too low, I'm just getting some clean air hitting my helm, and the weight is taken by the wind, so I haven't actually got any weight on my wrists at all at the moment. I'm comfortable, yet aerodynamic. If I was on my KTM I'd be getting blasted about by the turbulence off the screen, but I'm not. The suspension, I've softened it off as I showed you at the start of this video, and it is actually made a big difference. In the default setting I found this bike still too firm and not terribly compliant, and it was kicking me out of the seat over bigger bumps, but now I've wound it off 3 mechanical electric screwdriver clicks, electromechanical fake screwdriver clicks, and softened it. Oh, it's actually a lot more compliant. It is lovely and juicy. Still feel the big bumps. It is still a sports bike, and I would fight anyone that says this isn't a sports bike, because I think it is really. I had to be a bit circumspect because I'm on those super courses, which I know are actually okay in the wet, but I don't want to have any massive moments. And I would say when the front lifts on this, it can do it reasonably unexpectedly, because you don't realise that you're in the meat of the mid-range, because this actually feels like it revs forever, even though it's only 11,500. You always got so much acceleration on tap that you don't really need to rev it out. But, and this is the problem with this bike, you want to rev it out to get the noise. Just kind of, I don't know, gassing it for a little bit at 4,500 RPM, you get a little bit of airbox noise, but it's not massively exciting. If I did that on an old 1050 Speed Triple, you get all these wonderful different noises in the middle of the revs when you gave it full throttle. This just sounds a little bit boring, and I know we can blame Euro 5 for all of this, but do a Yamaha thing like they did the MT10, tune the airbox in the tank to give us more induction noise, because it just feels a little bit, doesn't feel flat, but it sounds a bit flat compared to the previous gen bike. And I know there are lots of people out there that love their 1050 Speed Triples. I don't know how many are going to make the shift to this bike, to be honest, because it just feels a little bit I don't know, the engine sounds a little bit bland to me, but you know, maybe I'm just a whingy journalist. Anyway, onwards. That was trying to spin up, go quite quickly, but yeah, the way this handles on the country road, it's feels a lot like a speed triple, to be honest. I feel like I've got just about enough reassurance in the front end, but it's not. But putting clip-ons on it hasn't suddenly endowed it with the feel that you get from, say, an RS V4 or a Panigale V4 from the front end. And I know I shouldn't really be comparing it to those bikes, but let's say it's good. It gives you good feedback through the chassis, just not really the front end, I don't think. But bear in mind, it's reasonably cold and reasonably damp, and I'm on super courses. The brakes are an interesting one. They're certainly really good. Obviously, they're Brembo stylemas, but I don't really get much through the lever from them. It's almost as if the thing that tells me I'm braking hard is my bum sliding forward in the seat rather than anything through my hands. It just feels a little bit disconnected. But this turns in really nicely. Obviously I'm going pretty slowly because it's damp, but on a nice dry day you can hoon this and have a really good time. And the riding position, it encourages you to hang off and do all those sports bike things. Like I want to break up my one-piece leathers to ride this, but it's just been so flipping cold. I would never find my genitals again, so I haven't. Yeah, blipper is really good. Upshifts can be a little bit slow, I think, a little bit delayed, but you know, it's not the worst system by a country mile. Yeah, first gear takes you very close to triple figures, let's just say. But yeah, it's quite long geared. It feels like it's geared for track. But then I seem to remember the RS felt much the same, to be honest. But anyway, I probably waffled on a bit too much about this bike. It is a good thing. It's just not your only bike. It's certainly not a bike you're going to want to use daily because it's just a bit too shiny and precious. It would do your wrists in if you were commuting on it, even though it's nice to commute on a sports bike. And I think this is something like 40mm narrower than the flat barred one. Yeah, I like that you can soften the suspension off. Love that. In fact, I just want them to put the suspension on the naked one because I prefer nakeds, and maybe change the gearing a bit. But anyway, what do I know about making motorbikes? All I know is I haven't really fallen head over heels in love with this thing, despite the fact on paper it ticks a lot of boxes for me. Actually, I just want to film a little addendum to the riding bit of this while I'm cruising through a 30 limit on cruise control, which I've not mentioned. It's got cruise control, doesn't have heated grips. What would I get instead of this? Well, I would almost certainly have the naked version over this, but then you're obviously looking at super naked, and my super naked, as I think everyone knows, is the Super Duke, because it's got grunt everywhere. That engine is beautiful on the road, as I've obviously bought a Super Adventure, which is basically the same thing with a bit less scariness. The Tuono. Now, Daytona has obviously got a lot of plastic, not as much as this, but it's not that naked, and I love that bike. And in fact, I'm riding the non-factory 1100 Daytona for a review in a couple of weeks. I rode the factory last year, kind of liked it, kind of preferred the KTM, so we'll see if the cheaper Daytona is any good. But yeah, I think if I was shopping and I had 18 grand in my pocket and I wanted something sporty, I would still just get a super naked, because that suits me more than a bent over sort of thing. And if I was going to buy a track bike, I sure as hell wouldn't be spending 18 grand on one, because with my lack of skill I'd probably bin it, which would be a sad face. You can get frame protectors for this from Triumph, but I don't know, it'd be nice to see these on track days, but I don't see many people doing it. Anyway, enough waffle, let's go back to me for an outro, maybe sitting next to the bike, looking a bit fat on a wide angle lens. Oh, right. So yeah, sorry about that, it's a little bit waffly, but in conclusion, this bike, it lacks certain things that I'd want from an £18,000 motorbike, namely character and just more accessibility of that engine's power on the road. But you can't deny it's beautifully finished. It looks, the dog's danglies in person. It's quite hard to photograph and get the right angle so you can actually see it. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I don't love it. And I think for £18,000, I need to properly fall in love with it, because it's definitely not an only bike. It's too extreme in the riding position. Yeah, it's pretty hardcore. But if you're spending 18 grand on a bike for the track, are you going to buy a half-fared thing, or are you just going to go and buy an Aprilia RS V4 on eBay for a couple of grand off list price or something like that? I don't know, but you know, it's different. I've got to applaud Triumph for doing it, because to me, it doesn't look like it makes much financial sense unless they're using this as a test bed for putting electronic suspension on the RS, which would be cool, having this stuff on the comfortable one that doesn't do your perineum in. But anyway, hopefully that was helpful. I might sound like I've been a bit harsh on it, but frankly, I just want to tell you what an 18 grand bike I think should feel like for the road. If you're going to take it on track, you're going to have a different outcome to what I've had. But anyway, cool thing, Triumph, just probably not my bag. And go and test ride one for at least an hour if you're into buying one, because yeah, after an hour, my bum went more to sleep than a tranquilized giraffe. But anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful. If it has, hit like. Also subscribe to this channel and my car channel, which is Tim Rohde Drive Stuff, because it's massively helpful and it means that I can actually afford COVID tests and things that the government's taken away from us. But anyway, no negativity. On to the next video. See you later. Goodbye. Have a good day. A great day. Great week. Great year. Life. Exceptional life. That's weird.